just stand to this side of it, I guess. Right? He'll probably fix it when Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, because you're gonna see those popping up in these next 2 weeks soon. This cold's delayed us by 2 weeks, so don't worry about things are not popping out yet. Okay, welcome to my lilac class. My name is Mackenzie, Ken Lane's daughter, so he's letting me teach some things here and there so I can get better at it. So if I speak too fast, please feel free to yell at me and slow me down because I forget and I need to learn to go slower. So let me know if I'm going too fast. So the idea outline for today is I'm going to talk about the lilacs, and then I'll go into pruning, watering, feeding, and then the other generic stuff here. So that's kind of how we'll present it. So, oh, can you hear me now? Is that better? Can we still hear me? Okay. So I'm going to talk, so there's 2 different types of lilacs, basically. You got your dwarfs, and you've got your standard big size lilacs. So I have them separated here to big ones and small ones, so you can see the difference. So I'll just pull one. This is the Betsy Ross lilac. This is a white one, but it's one of the older common lilacs that you see. So the older common ones are going to have bigger leaves and bigger blooms and flowers. So you can see, I don't want to hear myself talking back. So this is a bloomerang, and you can just see the difference. So bloomerangs are one of your smaller lilacs, probably 4 or 5 feet, whereas these are like 7, 8 feet. So that's the difference. And then you can even tell, the leaves are a lot smaller, and the flowers are smaller, but they're more of them. So that's kind of the difference between dwarfs and talls, is flower size and the leaf size. So that's the difference. So the common ones, we'll put this aside, they bloom once a year. So they're going to bloom here in these next 2 weeks. They would have bloomed by now, but again, we were delayed by 2 weeks. So you'll start seeing them. This one I brought because it is starting to bloom. Ugh. So this one is a Old Glory lilac, obviously darker leaves, but it is starting to bloom already. So that will take off in a week, probably by this weekend, it'll probably be blooming. It'll bloom for 6 weeks. So the old ones, they all bloom for 6 weeks. That's their time, and then they're done. So you get pretty for your spring, and then green the rest of the year until the fall. So that's your old ones. Your common, your big guys, huge. We like to use these, my dad's got one side of the house. It's not big like a tree, but it blocks the window from that west-facing sun. So they're great blockers for things without becoming trees. So that's that. Welcome, welcome. So these are your dwarf ones. So dwarf 4 to 5 is still big, but they're your dwarf lilacs that you can find. This is the bloomerang, and this is the little darling. So dark purple, this is more of a light purple, white almost. And then I do have Scent and Sensibility, which is a pink, white, variegated one, which is really cool. I also have Miss Kim's, which I didn't bring up, again, a white pink variety. So These guys get about 4 to 5 feet tall. And then this one gets 2 to 3 feet wide, whereas these get 4 to 5 feet wide. So these are more of a shrub. This is more of a tall. So these guys, the only difference between the little ones, everything, is these and the bloom rings. Bloom rings will bloom 2 to maybe 3 times a year. They'll bloom once now, once in the summer, and if we stay warm long enough, they'll bloom again in the fall. So ours this last year bloomed all the way into October. It was crazy because we had a very warm season till then. So that's the difference. The bloom rings are the only ones that will give you multiple blooms in a year. Everything else is once. So that's just the difference in the lilacs. And now we'll kind of go into the pruning and all the watering and all of that. So there's several. Yeah, good. Yeah.
I have one, I think it looks a lot like this one as well. And it's been in the ground now for 4 years at least.
Okay.
It has yet to bloom.
I'll go into that. There will be one of these products. I'll go into that. Yeah. Yes, completely. Both of them. Both deer and javelina resistant. And also, they don't get many insects either. They might get some aphids on the new growth as we come out, but I don't notice things attack them a lot in terms of insect-wise. You have a question? Not that we've carried. Wouldn't be surprised if they created a double lilac bloom, but that's kind of why they created like bloom rings, so you could get multiple in a year, but not double. I've never really seen that. Any other questions before I move into pruning and stuff? Okay, so I got steps for you. There are steps to do the pruning and everything because it depends on how old your lilac is. So if you have a new, young little baby lilac, you're pruning that guy lightly after it finishes blooming. Every lilac preference is to bloom when it finishes blooming, but between like 2 weeks after it's finished, best time to do it. You can prune year-round if you would like, but you'll lose your spring flowers if you prune too late or if you prune right after it's like a month after it's done blooming. You'll start losing your spring flowers. Yeah. Yeah, so that's a good question. So she asked about pretty much the bloom rings. If you get those when you prune, I would prune 2 weeks after the spring bloom. So probably by like end of April, more like mid-May, you could do that. I would do that the first bloom. Yep, forgot my track. But so 2 weeks after it blooms, which is probably like a summer. So that's those guys. So pruning. So flower-wise, you'll just prune back to the next leaf formation. So flowers probably here, you prune back to the next leaf. Just do that for your young guys. If you have something between, I would say like 3 to 8 years old, you're going to be doing a much harsher cutback. So you'll probably be cutting, but you'll be thinning it out, giving it room to breathe. So you'll probably be cutting things all the way back to like the main branches when you're thinning it out. These guys are prone to fungal, leaf spot, things like that when they're bigger because they just get so thick, there's no airflow through them. And with our monsoons and stuff, they'll get fungal if you don't clean them out. Anything 8 years and older, you're cutting back the old canes. So they can get really thick old canes. You're cutting those ones out first. It seems counterintuitive, but you cut out the old canes all the way back. You may have to saw through those suckers, but it keeps it vibrant, keeps it rejuvenated. So you'll do that for every year. You'll cut off some older canes. This is in plants 8 years and older. And then for the next 3 years, you let it go unchecked. So you'll cut for 3 years, let it go unchecked for 3 years. And that's how you rejuvenate an old lilac bush. Instead of ripping it out, throwing a new one in, which is what I would do, you can trim it up, shape it up, keep it going for 3 years longer and stuff. So that's for your old 8 years and older lilacs. Everything else, it doesn't need such a harsh haircut, just needs to be thinned out more. So, but you keep it back whatever level you want to keep it at. Make sure I got that all. Yeah, so deadhead faded flowers is step 1. Step 2 is remove any of the dead, broken branches, things like that. Step 3, rejuvenate by cutting the old canes off. And then step 4, remove all suckers. So if you see things coming out from the base of the plants. None of these have suckers because they're all too young. They'll mostly happen in your older lilacs, kind of probably 5 years and older. They're going to grow right from the base of your plant out. So there'll be like almost new growth, like the whole thing will be filled. That's a sucker. You want to take that out. Your plant will try and do that when it gets too old because it's like, I'm old. Let me send out new young things. That way I can die and be fine. Don't let it do that. If it sends out suckers, take them off, and it will focus its energy back on the plant rather than the suckers. So you'll see that a lot on trees. They get suckers really bad. You always want to take those off on trees and stuff. But if you've seen on lilacs, take them off. So that's your suckers. And then the last step is, again, cutting out your old canes from your old stuff. So that's pruning. Any questions on pruning before I move on? Yes, because they're gonna go into bloom and you don't want to cut those off. So do it once they finish blooming out, then you cut them back. Yeah. Okay, so feeding, we'll do that since it's a little easier. Feeding these guys is the same. You're using the all-purpose plant food, 744, 4 times a year, 3 to 4 times a year. You should have done it back in March. So the next time to do it is in June. Yeah, June, by 4th of July, June, July, things like that. Is your second feeding. Your third one's in the fall, Halloween, and then your fourth one's usually early in the year in like January. So those are the 4 times a year. So June, July will be your next one. 744. The other thing to do when they are blooming is flower power. And this is anything that blooms in your yard, you're going to want flower power. So this thing has, I think it's, lots of phosphorus in it. Phosphorus is what makes these guys bloom bigger, bloom longer, and sweeter if they do have a smell. So this guy, it's soluble in water. You do 1 scoop per gallon of water, and then pour it right on your plant, and it just gets them to bloom better here. And because we're so dry here, the plants need that extra help, and because we don't have nutrients in our water either. So we created this, Ken created this formula with the company in Fertizona. They created this for us, and it works well for our area. You talk to anyone who's used this, they will always say something great about it. You will never hear something bad about this. You can overuse it sometimes, so just follow the instructions for your plants, and you'll do great. So I almost killed my lilac because I overdid it. I was like, let's just pour it on there, and then I burned it out. So just follow the instructions on this guy.
So when do you start using that?
Now, I would use it now for your lilacs and things, or your early blooming plants, use it now. So, and it goes for your vegetables too. If you got like tomatoes and peppers that aren't flowering for you, this will help them get them flower. So that's for, who had that lilac? Yeah, that lilac. This would help for it. And then I'll go into the next product you would use. So certain times of the year you use certain products. So for right now, so this is meat and potatoes. If you guys heard that, meat and potatoes, your Snickers bar. So this is just additives for around here because we don't have anything. So right now I would use your soil sulfur with your 744 for your spring flowers. Use this in the spring. That's this guy. It just kind of gets them going more, gets more flower growth out of them, things like that, keeps them greener. That's what this does. In the summertime, use humic. Humic's not a fertilizer for flowers, it's a fertilizer for your ground. So it gets your worms going, gets your mycorrhizal. He knows I can't say that word. Helps your ground colony stuff. So our ground here is not alive. If you got clay or rock, it's not alive. So this just brings it back to life. After it's already used all your nutrients from the summer, this just gives it more. So this is for your roots and your dirt. Then in the fall, I would say this one's more important than anything else, is your fall feeding for your early blooming flowers. That's forsythia and lilacs especially, is bone meal or superphosphate. So these guys set up their flowers and stuff in the fall, so summer and fall. Let me finish this thought, otherwise I'll forget. I'll get back to you. So if you use these in the fall, either one, don't need to use both, either one, it will just set your flowers up for better growth in the spring. So like we had a really harsh winter this year, a really wet winter. If you use this in the fall, it just helps protect it more this time of year. So that's why this is important in the fall. Question? Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. It's great for lawns, raised bed, anything you want. It will help your area. Yeah. Yeah, I've really noticed this really helps lawns too because they have very little root system. So this just helps bring that dirt for the lawns to drag up that nutrients in the soil. So yeah. Okay, so that's your stickers, meat and potatoes. The last product, since I have it up here, I'll talk about those later. Any newly planted stuff, especially as we're going into this heat season, if you're gonna plant something, I highly suggest root and grow. This helps get things rooted out faster so they don't have to take so long focusing on roots rather than just growing up. So just this is just good for our area. Again, we've made this, it's fermented tea basically. We've made this for our area to do well for you guys to help you out. So any newly planted, you use this first. After about a month or two, you then switch into the granulars. You don't need to keep using this over time. This is just to begin with. So any questions on any of that? Okay. Watering, and I'll go into those. Watering wise, April through October, you're pretty much watering 2 times a week. And now that we're warming up, this is important. This is for mostly newly planted stuff. If you got older things, older lilacs, older shrubs, you're probably doing it maybe once a week or so, depends on what it is. We can talk later about that. So this is mostly for your lilacs watering, twice weekly. Then, let's see, November through March, you're doing it twice monthly. You don't need to do more than that because they're just sticks. They don't need more than that. So that's kind of lilacs. That's what I've got for lilac. Any questions on that before I kind of introduce companion plants for lilacs? Oh, right. I forgot about that. Good call. Yes. Other questions while I set it up? Yeah, I'll get you next. Yeah, so if we have a good snow, you don't necessarily need to do that. If it sticks around, if it saturates your soil like this year is done, you probably don't need to water that much. 2 years ago, we had a pretty warm winter, very little snow. That's when you would water in the winter time. Yeah. Yeah, which is great. Yeah, you might have a really solid hole that just does well for it, you know? It happens here. Arizona's weird. Yeah, you had a question too.
Okay, so like I said, I have the lilac. I've been in their ground for several years.
Yeah.
I have done everything you could basically told me to do. You're still not blooming.
So either there's several things that could go wrong with that. So they're not blooming even 4 years in the ground. It's either it's used up everything it's ever needed to in the ground, or it's all leached out away from the plant, nutrient-wise. Could be that it's hit a rock shelf, or you've got too much clay so it can't grow. So it's just like, I don't want to do anything, so it sits there. Those are the main culprits.
It's a beautiful plant.
Yeah, it's just not.
It's gorgeous, but I don't get
Okay, try feeding it this stuff in the fall, either the superphosphate or the bone meal, and see what it does to you. I know you've done it all. Try it, but otherwise, there's not much you can do to get it going if you use all that stuff. Not that you want to hear that. Yeah.
Does the humic acid help with the clay soil, breaking it up or anything?
It can, and not really made for that, so it doesn't really help with that. But anything you put in that soil will help with the drainage. Gypsum's better for that. Gypsum's way better to break up that clay. And sand. Yeah, if you can get sand and stuff. So planting wise, so let's go with like a 5-gallon. That's mostly what they're in. So if you have a 5-gallon plant, you're digging a hole twice as wide as this plant. Same depth. So because you can't dig super deep here, you don't need to go deeper than the pot because the roots always go out sideways. So same depth, twice as wide. You're going to use 1 part mulch to 2 parts native soil because you need some help here. And then you can top dress a really light layer of mulch. When you take it out of the pot, let me see if I can do it with this one. May not be able to. Oh. Okay, well, I can't do it with this guy. Yes, I can. So don't be afraid to scratch up and everything the bottom of the root ball. You can't just plant it like this. It needs room for its roots to go. So you just break up the bottom, scratch the sides, and then put it in the hole. You want to keep it slightly elevated. So like if this was ground level, you want to put it kind of up so it mounds. So because we don't want things to pool water here because it will root rot itself. So you want to mound a little bit, then well it around the outside. And that will help keep you enough moisture, but not drown your plant. So do that, do your mulch, and then your root and grow. And that's how you plant here. And we have a planting guide as well with our watering guide on it. Down by cashiers, I would highly suggest everyone grab one of those. Very helpful. Any other questions on any of that? Did I answer everything? Okay. All right. Okay. So let me just go over some other. Yeah.
Because where I grew up, mulch was the wood chips, barks that you put down to keep the weeds out.
Got it.
And compost is that.
So, yeah, it confuses a lot of people here. So this is our compost. Our premium mulch is our compost. Our cedar bark, would be that top dressing mulch. So it just is mostly dirt. It does have wood pieces in it and some other things, but it is more of like a dirt substance, so it can't go in your hole without killing everything. But it is hot. That's why you have to mix it with native dirt. You can't just plant in this because it heats up and it will burn your roots out. So you have to just mix it with your native soil. Okay, so companion plants, blooming things around town. These are about to pop, the red buds. This is the forest pansy red bud. So it's not going to look as similar to all the others. See if you can see that. So all red buds have a pink flower on them. They'll bloom pink flowers first, and then they'll get their leaves. So they're about to pop next probably 2 weeks. You'll see around town, especially PV, they've got lines of red buds going on. You'll see them all pink flowers. So there's several different varieties. Most of them are huge ones. They get 20 to 30 feet. And then you got Avondales, which are smaller. They're probably 10 by 15. So there's sizes, but they're big. Yeah. And suckers.
No, that's the plant itself. We just know a tree like this at all.
Oh, no?
And it like dies down in the winter and then comes back up again. And they don't bloom till late summer.
So it's probably not a red bud. I'd be surprised if it was a red bud.
Oh, she said it's not a red bud.
Okay, yeah, because that sounds like something else. We can talk more after the class for that. A great companion plant for the lilacs, especially, is mountain heath. I'll lift them up. I can lift them. Pink and purple is what we've got, or pink and white. Sorry, this is purple in my mind. These are great plants. It's about as high as they get, and then they just fill out. So they would look great under lilacs and things and be a companion like color show. These are, I believe, evergreen. Yeah, I believe they're evergreen. They bloomed like probably like 3 weeks ago, and they're probably going to bloom all the way into like May and then be done. So they're very early spring bloomers if you want that color. Mountain heath. Mountain heath. Yeah, like heath bar. Sorry. Pronunciation. So very kind of, again, animals don't touch these. Javelina deer don't touch them. Insects don't even go for these. Mostly it's like a watering thing, and they can handle both shade and sun. So they can do both and do well. They can, so they need at least 6+ hours of sun if you really wanted them to bloom. They can handle more shade. They just won't bloom as profusely for you guys. So you can kind of do both. I'm going to talk about this really quick just because it's happening since we've been warm. If you've noticed, any new growth is susceptible to aphids, spider mites. We've seen scale around and stuff, but aphids are coming out because of the warmth and the new growth. If you start seeing them, they're a sticky substance on the ground. They're little green bugs. They match the color of your plant. Just look out for them. Spinosad soap or sayonara will be your best product to take them out, and both are very safe. So if you have something that's more edible or it's around children or something, once this is dry, it is safe. It is fine. So if dogs eat it or something, gnaw on it, this will be fine once it's dry. But just to keep an eye out, bugs are coming out. I just wanted to let you guys warn you guys that it's happening. So that more companion plants, solid ones, are lavender and rosemary. I know you guys all know about them. Who doesn't, right? So this is a creeping rosemary. As you can tell, creeps down. So it's great for in front. Like if you put a lilac in a pot, which the dwarf ones would be great in pots. The big guys probably not. You'll have to have a very big pot for them. But the little guys can do great in pots, no problem. these would be great around them. So these will crawl over a pot and everything kind of design-wise. That's why I like them as companions, because it gives you a different look with something that's more upright. So, and then, again, hardy, they take the same amount of water kind of thing, so you won't be like overwatering one, underwatering another. So that's why they're a great companion. Again, lavender is great too. These are all like Spanish lavenders. So more flowers, more blooms. They're just, they take more water than like the French or the other lavenders. They're just like a little bit more water than the others. But they all do great. Hardy, nothing touches them, nothing eats them. This is one of our newer varieties with the white and the purple flower kind of thing together. Mostly you'll see them all purple. So I just thought this one was cool, so I'll bring it up. This one is called the white Spanish lavender. Yeah, right? So lovely. Yeah. The other thing you'll start seeing bloom around town, if you haven't already, is the forsythia. Again, blooms first, then shoots out leaves. So it bloomed about a month ago. It's been blooming ever since. Probably's got another 2 weeks on it, then it's done. And it'll send out flowers. So these guys can get pretty tall. I have both dwarf variety and regular. This one gets probably 6 to 8 feet. The dwarf one's probably 3 to 4. So kind of like the lilacs. So just a great pop of color in your yard for something early blooming. Sometimes you get done with winter.
Is that okay around animals?
Yes. Yeah. Let's see. I'll go over. Yeah. Oh yeah. So we have handouts for you guys to hand out. Here's that pen. Oh, look, clipboard. Look at that. So one of it is on, it's kind of what I've been speaking on, is one of the handouts is pruning, watering, feeding, and all that. So it will be condensed down for you on that handout. Just pass it around here. The other one is on, Ken has like a lilac jelly recipe. So he's putting that on there if you guys want to make lilac jelly. I've never tasted it, so I don't know what it'll taste like. But it has to be untreated flowers and stuff. So, and then the last one is just overall care for a lilac. It's not pruning, but it's just like how to plant it, how to do all that. So those are the handouts for you guys. Last thing I'll talk about is just things that we brought in recently. This week we had 3 trucks come in with all these other perennials and summer plants. So I just got excited. It's exciting to have spring finally here and our season to finally hit. So I got catmint. This is picture perfect, so it doesn't get as tall as some of the other catmints. It's more of a spreader. Candy tuft. This is a very early spring bloomer, but it goes through like into June. So it's one of the longer spring bloomers. It can handle the cold. It'll all be fine. And just like this. Candy tuft. Yeah. Yeah. Not really. Just kind of for the color of it. And then we just got these guys in. We'll have more in through the summer, but these are ice plants. Low growing. This is as tall as they get. Their flowers open in this afternoon, close at night, in the morning, and they'll open again. So they kind of do that. Solid plants. You just chuck them in. They'll take care of themselves. You do not have to take care of them. So that's why they're kind of nice for things. And they're low grow. Ice plant. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nope. They can handle it. Yeah. They might die back some, but they'll just stay what they're doing. These guys are all annuals. So that means annuals means they will die out in the winter or in the summer. So your pansies and your violas tend to die out in the summer because we get too hot and they burn out. Unless they're in a shaded spot or protected. I've had people carry them for a whole year. Right now what we're brought in is poppies. These are just about to hit off. They're going. You'll see them up in people's yards in about a month or so. Like the little ones. These are your California poppies. And then these got in African daisy. Again, an annual. Just started to pop. Like this was closed this morning. It popped this afternoon. So this warrants from this weekend will get things to go. Great companion plant for just a fun pot or something like that. Again, snapdragons, you've had these all winter. They're a great plant to put out right now. They will not be affected by the cold or even the heat. You can get them going for a long time. And these are biannuals. They will come back for about 3 to 4 years and then we'll be done. So you can kind of keep them going. Okay. They'll go in the winter. They die out more in the summer. They don't necessarily like the heat. Yeah, so they're more of your winter color. Everything here you can put out now, even if we go back to cold, it might freeze them out a little bit, but they will be fine. We've already hardened them off. They're used to our cold. You can plant them now, no problem. So I'd get them in before May. If you want to plant anything, do it before May. You'll get too hot, otherwise you'll be like cursing everything because you're in the heat doing it. These guys we just got in. These are salvia, autumn sage. Everyone's got one. Solid plants, 2 by 2. Nothing touches them. Nothing eats them. You trim them back kind of in the fall or in March too. Trim them back in March and then they'll just start growing. So you'll see these guys going. By May, they'll be full of flowers. So the whole top fills with flowers, and then you just cut it back, and it just keeps going. Yeah, hummingbirds, bees, butterflies love them because they're tubular flowers, so they can get in there. So you can like halve it almost. Once they're kind of growing out for the season, you can half it, and it will be fine. Very hardy plants for around here. Think that okay, I'll finish talking about what I brought up. So these are gopher plants. I got a ton back there. Great plant, evergreen. Rainbow ascot is their like brother almost. It's similar plant, all hardy. Throw it in the ground. You never have to touch it again. The native land, whatever, will take care of it for you. Just grows out. This one's more low grow, grows out, whereas the rainbow ascot's up. 2 by 2. This one's probably like 1 by 4 almost. So rainbow ascot, that is its cousin or brother, whatever, down in the lower house. I can show you guys later. I didn't bring it up. But again, hardy plant, nothing eats it. So last one I'll talk about is an annual. Well, yeah, annual. This is a Carolina jasmine. Jessamine Carolina. So kind of a variety of jasmine almost. Don't really smell, but this guy, if you keep it up against a house or somewhere really warm where it radiates heat, you could probably get it to go year round. It is a zone 8, so it's temperamental. Doesn't necessarily like our cold, but if it's up against something warm, it probably could go year round. Otherwise, bring it into a garage or something if you want to save it. But I just brought it because it's just full of these yellow flowers that is just something that can vine that will get you flower and color this time of year. So it's a new plant. Thought I'd bring it up. The last one you guys will see, fruit trees are blooming everywhere right now. So they're either going to be white or pink flowers. I just brought it up because it's cool. And if you don't necessarily have to like fruit to want a fruit tree that gives you pretty flowers. So again, fruit trees can be grown in pots here. The semi-dwarfs to dwarf varieties. If you have a regular size fruit tree, no. But a semi-dwarf or a dwarf can go in pots here. So 10 to 12 usually. You can keep them trimmed back as much as you want, but 10 to 12 feet is a dwarf. Or a semi-dwarf. Sorry, dwarf is more like 4 to 5 feet. I don't have any dwarves anymore that were out till next year, but I've got semi-dwarfs and everything else. Yeah, I mean, you're probably looking at, we have ours in actually a fairly small pot for what it should be in, and it's, so it doesn't have to be giant. It just has to have enough depth for the roots. So any questions, anything I spoke about? I know this was a quicker class, but there was, talking about lilacs. So, yeah.
Maybe on topic, but could you talk about butterfly bushes a little bit?
Yeah. So I can go, well, do you guys know what they look like and stuff mostly? Okay, because I can grab one, they're right up there. But butterfly bushes, they're coming in probably the end of April more. They're more of a summer plant, so they won't even leaf out until like May. So you'll see them, they're very deciduous right now, very just sticks in the ground. Once they come out, full sun, they like full sun, probably 6+ if you can. Nothing really touches them, javelina or deer. They can sometimes get aphids, but that's with anything in the summer. Again, I get many different sizes, so they can be any like 4 feet, 3 to 4 feet, all the way up to probably like 5 or 6. All the colors, so they can come in lots of different purples, white, yellows sometimes, mostly purples. To answer your question, what else? I'm not sure what else you need to know.
It's good because I'm thinking about things to put in the yard that are going to stay evergreen and then things that are not.
Yeah. So another great summer companion plant, the butterfly bush, is the crepe myrtles. They don't even leaf out until May, bloom until like June. But they're another solid summer plant. Full sun, full heat, very drought resistant. So that's another one. Come in many different colors, from bright red to like, we have a white one with dark colored leaves, which is super pretty. I love that one. It's my favorite. You don't even prune those till March. So you let them go through the whole season, and then in March you prune them, because as soon as you start pruning that stuff, they're going to want to grow, and you don't want them to grow too fast in the winter, because the cold will just take out any new growth. So same with the roses. I don't know if you guys, a lot of people have questions on roses. Prune them in March, because as soon as you cut a rose bush, it wants to grow, and you do not want it growing in the cold as much. So March is a good time. I know we freeze late here, and people feel like they can't plant anything. You can plant a lot here in the cold. We just have to harden it off. So that means if you have a plant that came from California or something, you have to leave it in the cold or in your garage for 3 days, move it out. You just got to level it up into the cold. If you put it right outside, it just freaks it out. It dies on you. So we brought in some butterfly bush and some tomatoes and peppers, put them out on an even slightly cold day, and they all freaked out on me because they weren't hardened off yet. So hardening off just means getting it used to the cold. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The lemons can't handle our cold here. We just get too cold for the zone that it wants to be. So you yes, yeah. The certain plants, there's the zonage. So we are zone 7 here. Anything in zone 7 will harden itself off over the years. If it's, I think Meyer lemons, they're like a zone. Yeah, so they can't handle a cold, so they can't harden themselves off because they just don't have that capability. So a lot of these have like a anti-cold antifreeze in them in their bark and stuff. So that's what keeps them going. So now they're sending their sap back up to push through growth. So certain things will harden themselves off. Any other questions? Yeah.
You said the cat
Mint?
mint.
Yeah.
So is it an edible mint, or is it just more of a?
It's more of just a look mint. You can probably eat it. It's not going to taste as good as the other regular mint. Yeah, mostly for a look. Anything else? And I can't think of anything else to talk about. Oh, I could talk about a lot, but for this class. All right, that's it. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for showing up, you guys. Appreciate it. I don't know. We'll just rock, paper, scissors. Yeah, herbs is next week. Yes. Classes are Fridays at 3 until the end of April. Once May hits, we're done with classes for that month. And then we'll start them up again in like June or July. So, yeah. All right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we'll carry it more in May. Yeah.
That stays pretty green all year.
Yeah, it's pretty good evergreen.